Mr. Walberg, how are you going to create jobs?
Well, I think we do the things that always create jobs. I look back on my time in the state legislature when we had a $1.8 billion budget deficit coming in from Governor Blanchard's administration. John Engler took over. During the time of the Blanchard administration, I had been pushing for and co-sponsoring legislation, to cut taxes, cut spending, reduce unnecessary regulation, and draw down the size of government so we could expand the private sector, the only place where jobs are produced. It's interesting to see that when we did those type of things in the early and mid-90s, I co-sponsored 26 tax cuts. I co-sponsored Proposal A that established a better framework for funding education plus reduced property taxes by 50%. When we put down regulation that was unnecessary, we encouraged businesses to say yes to Michigan because we said yes to them first of all. We turned it around in '99 when I was term limited and left with a over $1 billion budget surplus, a AAA bond rating of the state, and job providers coming back to the state, and a unemployment rate of less than 6%. That's the approach we take. When I went to Congress, I mean, it's right to talk about the fact that we ought to fight against and repeal and stop cap and trade, to repeal and replace the onerous health care takeover that is going to put inordinate taxes on businesses and job providers, let alone individuals, that will hurt the family farm. But there has to be an alternative as well, and I offered legislation that was an all-of-above energy plan that says let's use the resources we have, let's be independent, and in being independent we provide jobs and security for our people. Let's look at the health care and offer a patient-centered private sector approach that gives incentives to people and individuals and businesses to do the things that they know they should do, and yet government has been giving disincentives for that. To have a balanced budget amendment. I co-sponsored that. I co-sponsored legislation to make permanent the Bush tax cuts. All of these principles are positive, and as I look back on my record, those things that worked, when we had the ability to put those through, sign them into law, and let the private sector work, is huge. It was interesting, Jason, that just this past week, Mark Schauer, the seated congressman, took me on for an ad that talked about cutting taxes and cutting spending and reducing unnecessary regulation. And he said, Walberg didn't say anything about creating jobs. Well, that shows why we've got the problem we have right now. This guy thinks the only way we can create jobs is through more government involvement. And that's the huge difference that we're looking at, where I put my trust in the American people and its systems. He puts his trust in big government.
But isn't it true we lost jobs on your watch as well as his in the last few years?
Well, lost jobs on my watch as I fought those things that were losing jobs. You know, I co-sponsored legislation to make permanent Bush tax cuts. Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Reid were not about to even hear that. The American people are getting it. They understand that those are the things we need to do now. This hope and change that was the mantra. Now the mantra is, how's this hopey, changey stuff working out? We want to go back to those tried and true principles, that fresh ideas that Washington and Jefferson and Madison and Hamilton and Adams had, that said, allow a free people to expand, allow a free people to do the things that they alone can do. Government, set the framework, and then back out of the way, and it'll happen.
All right, the next question is about unemployment. The U.S. Senate today, gentlemen, as you know, voting to likely extend the unemployment benefits compensation bill. And like I said, it's probably going to pass as it did in the House. Would you have voted to extend these benefits? And as you answer, I want you to address the 50,000 unemployed workers in your district, half of whom would have exhausted their extension benefits by the end of this year. Mr. Rooney, you first.
I would not have voted to extend the benefits unless they were newly unemployed. People have been on the unemployment line for a long time, and part of the problem we have here in Michigan is a systemic problem, where I've talked to business owners in Jackson, where you have that own several small businesses, and they have a problem with dealing with minimum wage workers, where the incentive is better for them to be on unemployment than it is to have a minimum wage job. We need to get away from this creeping welfare back into our culture, where President Clinton rightfully got rid of welfare and the welfare culture, but it's slowly coming back, and we need to get rid of that.